Hey everybody, this is Rustin Rose with Metalholic Magazine, and with us tonight, Jeff Mantas Dunn and Tony Demolition Man Dolan of Metal Pioneers Venom, and now, of course, M-Pire of Evil. 30 fucking years, you guys. What the hell?
Yeah, we're getting old. I mean, it's we've done loads of interviews for this album. I mean, it's been received really, really well. I mean, the reviews are excellent. We're heading off to the States next week for this tour. I mean, me and Tony, we've got a long sort of history together. We've been friends and brothers for the last 30 years, and we were in Venom together, and then Tony was with me in the Mantas band. But we've always had this thing where if there's been a parting of the ways, it's never been a personal thing between me and Tony. It's never been a musical thing. It's always been outside influences like management, record companies and stuff like that. But this time, it just feels, so natural. The writing process, the whole vibe of the band, there's no outside involvement to sort of put any dampeners on the thing, and we're just doing what we want. And I think now, with the album imminent release, we're looking at it and think, yeah, we've just got a damn good fucking heavy metal album, and that's what we sort of set out to do, really. It wasn't a case of we need to write this or we need to write that or we need to stay in this black metal vein or this kind of genre. We thought, no genres. We're not going to be genre specific. We're not going to be stuck in a box. We've got a lot of experience in this industry. We've got a lot of sort of influences that we've picked up along the way. I'm still old school when it comes to metal. I like melody. I like hook lines and choruses and stuff like that. So that's the way we basically wrote. And I'm just excited about this project. It's great. It feels good. It feels right. We're on the roller coaster. We've strapped ourselves in and we're ready for the ride. Let's go. Let's see where it takes us.
The album, The debut, is going to be coming out in a couple of weeks. Hell to the Holy, and I want to talk about M-Pire of Evil and the debut album in a minute. But of course, like we said, 30 years. If you don't mind, I'd like to venture back to the beginning for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Now, what was going on back in 1975 when NWOBHM was starting to break? Things were getting heavier, and Venom came in and stepped on everything and just decimated what we knew of metal. Well, I mean, for me, I've always been into guitar-based things. I mean, early, really, in going back into my childhood, early influences. I mean, I was into T-Rex and Mark Bolan. There's a guitar straight away. And then it was Slade. And they were a little bit heavier. Still had the sort of commercial edge to them. But it was riotous. It was, Mama, we're all crazy now. Come on, feel the noise. All that kind of stuff. Obviously the Sweet as well. I mean, the Sweet had a heavier side to them. Right.
But I was always looking for something, what's the next thing I can find? What's next? What's heavier than that? What's heavier than this? And then it was 79, the guitarist that I actually started the band with, which became Venom, Dave Rutherford. We used to go to a lot of gigs together in Newcastle. We were always going to the City Hall or the Mayfair. And the first band I ever seen was Blue Oyster Cult. I seen them at the Newcastle City Hall, and that must have been mid-70s. And then, 79 Killing Machine tour, I think it was. I got a phone call from Dave, and he was like, I've got tickets to see this band, Judas Priest, and I'd heard the name, but I wasn't familiar with them at that point. Went along, that was it. Life was changed, direction was made, and I knew that was it. The KK down and on stage, the look, everything. It was, this is metal. This is a fucking metal band. And I mean, I was into Kiss, I was into Rush. Early. I love early Rush. All the early Kiss stuff.
Right.
Early Scorpions with Uli John Roth, all that Speedy's Coming, all that kind of thing. And obviously Motörhead. And like I say, just constantly looking for something that little bit heavier and a little bit heavier. And then we put the formative ideas of a band together. So we had a band, vocalist, bass player. Bass player was, very much into Rush, had the Rickenbacker and everything like that. We had this drummer that we auditioned who, his audition was to play along to I think it was side 1 of Seconds Out by Genesis, the live album. You know, so immediately he was far too good for us, but he came in. And I mean, you know, we just used to go along to this sort of this school hall and jam. But again, in my mind, it was like I want something heavier. I want, you know, there's something missing, you know. And that's when the sort of connection with Abaddon came around. I'd put an advert out in local music stores saying about, you know, I wanted a drummer. And I had, on this particular day that I went down to the music store, there was 2 drummers that I had to meet. And I met Abaddon first and seemed to get on well with the guy, you know, and he seemed to be into the same things. He was into Purple and all that kind of stuff, you know. So I didn't even wait for the second guy. We just arranged to, you know, have a jam at this school hall. And I remember when he turned up and he brought this piece of shit drum kit in with him. And literally just beat the crap out of it, you know. And I mean, it was, oh God, he couldn't carry a fucking rhythm in a bucket, you know. It was like, but it was noise. It was great, you know. And I remember the bass player, who was quite a technical guy, this guy called Dean Hewitt. And he came up to me at the end of the rehearsal and went, "Is that guy joining the band?" And I went, yeah. And he went, "Well, fuck this, I'm out of here." You know, so that was the end of him. So then a friend of mine called Alan Black came in on bass. And when Abaddon came along and we had another meeting, he brought this guy called Clive Archer, who became the first singer in Venom. So Venom was a 5-piece. With Abaddon, myself, Clive Archer, rhythm guitarist Dave Rutherford, and Alan Black on bass. And then Dave started to get a little bit disenchanted with things, so, you know, he sort of left. And I was at a girlfriend's house. We used to congregate at this girl's house every Tuesday night, I think it was, in Wallsend, which was just up the road from Neat Records, as a matter of fact. And I walked in this night, and you know, it was just a load of metalheads. Her parents used to go out on this particular night, so all the metalheads used to congregate around there. We used to turn the volume up and drink beer and stuff. And I walked in, and this guy was sitting on the sofa, and he was my girlfriend's friend's boyfriend. So I just went over and said hello, you know, and it was Kronos. So I was just talking to him, you know, and saying, you know, like, I've got a band, you know, but we're looking for a new rhythm guitarist. And he's like, oh, I play a bit of guitar. So invited him along, and he joined as a rhythm guitarist. Then the bass player left, so he took over bass duties. Went in the studio. I had written a song for Clive. We actually did a couple of gigs with Clive as well. But I wrote a song. It was called Live Like an Angel, Die Like a Devil. And went in the studio, and the idea was that Kronos was going to sing this song while Clive went off stage and did this costume change and came back on for Schizo. And then when we heard the vocals, it was like, oh, okay then, this is pretty good. So then, you know, Clive stepped aside, and that's when it became a 3-piece. So, but I mean, I've still got a rehearsal tape from 1979 in a church hall in the West End of Newcastle, and Clive singing, and on that tape is Angel Dust, Red Light Fever, Raise the Dead, and Buried Alive. You know, so Buried Alive was written, you know, way back then as well. Wow. So there was a lot of the stuff. I mean, the band was already called Venom. You know, there was a lot of the material was already written, you know, way before Kronos came into the band. But, you know, it eventually became the 3-piece that everybody knows. And it just took off from there. And then, you know, the advent of the whole black metal thing and everything, It's quite daunting when you look back on it. You know, the effect that this band has had on the heavy metal scene. You know, it's I don't know. We were always the outcasts anyway in the Newcastle scene, and at that point with the new wave of British heavy metal, there was a great metal scene in Newcastle. I mean, we had Rave and Fist, the Tigers of Pantang. There was White Spirit. You know, Yannick Gers, who was in that band, and now in Maiden. Great scene, but we were always, you know, the band everybody hated in the Northeast. And I think that one of the reasons was because all the other bands in the Northeast were quite accomplished musicians. They were all, you know, studied their craft and all this kind of stuff. We just made this unholy fucking noise. But we had the balls to go out there and do it. And I think a lot of the bands resented that, you know, where we were going away to Europe and stuff like that, you know, and all these other bands were looking at us thinking, how the fuck can they do that? You know, we're far better than them. And probably musically they were, but they were no different to anyone else. I think that was the difference with us. I think definitely with Venom, right place, right time. I think people were ready for something different. We're coming off the back end of the punk explosion. Metal and rock at that particular point seemed to be quite squeaky clean, you know, with all these AOR acts that were around, you know, Foreigners' Journeys and Oreo Speedwagons, and the whole black metal thing came around through an interview that we were doing, you know, when we turned around and said that, you know, what you're calling metal now, rock, metal, whatever it is, you know, long hair, guitar, you're in a metal band. We don't feel that we've got anything in common with that. You know, we're quite far removed from it, you know, so it was a case of like, well, what the fuck are you? You know, so it was like black metal. There you go. It was a statement made to alienate us and individualize the band, you know, just to take us, whether or not that was arrogant and pretentious, yeah, it probably was. But it was a statement made to take us away from all that, what we considered to be the sort of norm, if you like, you know.
Right.
That's a normal heavy metal band, you know. And then after that, I mean, the black metal thing, good God, we didn't envisage creating a whole musical genre. But, I mean, it's evolved into what it is today, and without evolution, what happens? You become extinct. So it's progressed and progressed, and, you know, it really hasn't got a lot in common with what we started. You know, the advent of this corpse paint stuff, you know, when you see the bands are starting to put the corpse paint on and all this.
Right.
I've got photos of Clive from 1979 with that shit on. You know, he used to wear the black eyes and the white face and, you know, spit the blood and all that kind of stuff. One of the reasons we sort of got rid of Clive for was because we were thinking, Alice Cooper, Kiss, it's been done before, you know. We wanted to try and be original. And we thought, well, nobody does it better than fucking Kiss or Alice, you know. So, you know, what the hell are we bothering with this for, you know, and putting makeup on and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I've got photographs from a very early show. In fact, Venom's first show in the church hall in West End of Newcastle. And Clive's got all that corpse paint shit on, you know, spitting the blood and doing all that, you know. And we ditched that because we didn't think it was original. And then, hey, what happened years later, you know? And then you've got all the guys doing it now, you know, so... But I get asked this all the time, you know, how it feels to have had such an impact, and it's sometimes I look at it and think, fucking hell, did we do that? You know, guilty, sorry.
You guys were...
But it's, you know, it's all good at the end of the day. I can't say I agree with everything that goes on, you know, with the church burnings and all this kind of stuff, you know. I think a lot of people miss the point with us because, I mean, you look at the early albums, and I mean, you know, this Red Light Fever, I mean, fucking hell, what's that about? Come on. Poison, Teacher's Pet, you know, fucking... So it wasn't all demons and devils and goblins and stuff like that, you know. I mean, we did have a wicked sense of humour as well.
Right.
But also a desire to take things as far as we possibly could and just shock the shit out of people, you know. And one of the funniest things is getting interviewed by a guy who was just constantly going on about I mean, he was, I don't know what religion he was, but he was obviously some Christian faction. But he was constantly going on about the backward messages, this, that, and the other, blah, 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 blah. And it was like, hold on. There's the album cover. It's got the pentagram on it, which is the symbol of the Church of Satan. We have a song on there called In League with Satan, and the album's called Welcome to Hell. How much more fucking obvious do you want it, mate? You know, it was like, I'm sorry, but we can't be any more blatant, so turning something backwards, fuck off, you know. But it's all good. It's all good fun for the kiddies, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, and that's the thing. It's like you look back at it, and it's like you guys were hailed as the forefathers of extreme metal, in particular black, like you said, and even speed and thrash. Yet at the same time, you were reviled by some as clumsy musicians, more interested in presentation than foundation.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But, you know, it was rock and roll was about show. It was about statement, you know. Yeah. But as you guys went on, you got better as musicians, and the music got more serious. And so here we are 3 decades later, and you reconnected with Anton, at least briefly, and, of course, Demolition Man there, to create M-Pire of Evil. So why now, and how did it all come together?
Right, well, how it all came together was, I had a band called Drill, and we had been booked to do a charity show for a DJ who sadly passed away in the northeast of England. And this DJ had done a hell of a lot for rock and metal in the northeast. So every year they did a charity event for him, and all the money went to his chosen charities. So this particular year they had asked us to headline the show, so we agreed. And at that point, the drummer that I had was based in Cologne in Germany, and the bass player was based in Berlin, Germany. And I got a phone call from the drummer's wife to say that he was with another band, and they were playing the Withful Force Festival, I think it was. The band was called Kajahon. And as he was approaching the stage, he was walking up the ramp, and he slipped and fell and broke his arm. So that put him out of action for quite some time. At the same time, the bass player couldn't make it because he's also a sound engineer and he was out on a job somewhere. So we decided to get two other guys in just to cover this show. First guy I rang was Nick Barker, but Nick couldn't do it because he was out on tour. And then I received a phone call, well, I received a message actually from Anton saying he'd left Venom. So I called him up and he came to my house and we spoke for hours, about the Venom situation and, all his reasons for leaving, were quite similar to the reasons I had. And then it was after that, I said, you wouldn't mind filling in for a show, would you? And he was like, no, cool. So we got together in rehearsals, and there was a local bass player came in, it was a friend of one of the other guitarists. After we did the show, it just seemed sensible to have everybody based in the same city because logistically it was getting a bit difficult, everybody travelling to Germany or them coming over here for rehearsals or studio work, whatever. So Anton joined Drill, and from that people started saying, Mantas and Anton back together again, I wonder if there's going to be anything else. So we spoke about, maybe doing like a little side project or something. And then gave Mike Hickey a call, who replaced me in 1986, and Mike was well up for it. He says, yeah, I wouldn't mind doing something. So that just left bass and vocals, and there was only one obvious choice. So I gave Tony a call, and I mentioned the idea to him, but didn't ask him directly. And he said it sounded like a great idea, so I held my breath and then went, so are you in? And he was like, fuck man, yeah, let's do it, So that was it. And then the first song musically that I wrote turned out to be Hell to the Holy. That was the very first song that I just knocked down as a demo, sent it off to everybody. And then we got a call from Mike saying just his work schedule in the States wouldn't allow him to commit to this. So, he says, I'm going to step aside and just let you guys get on with it. And then, obviously, we did the EP and, now the album. Anton's left because basically he's got a young family. He's got 3 young children. And I don't think he expected myself and Tony to want to go out and tour for as long. Where we had discussed it, it's like, okay, we've always had other people in the way, and we've had to step aside from projects. This time, there's no other involvement. It's just me and you. Let's do it properly. Let's go out there. So if we get off at the fucking tour for a month, let's just go and fucking do it. And I just don't think Anton was willing to do that. Plus the fact he's got another band he's had for about 10 years, and he's quite well. He's loyal to them as well. So he stepped down, and we've got another guy in now. Guy's name's Jackson. Yeah, he's a lot younger than me and Tony, but fuck me, he's an amazing drummer. He's from the northeast of England. He was in a band called Beyond the Grave, who did a couple of tours, and I think we've done a couple of European things, but nothing on the scale that we're going to go out and do. Certainly sort of touring lengthwise. But we've been in rehearsals with the guy, and he's great. He's really, really good. He really drives the band, Like you say, he's a young guy. He's very enthusiastic. He's well up for it, which is what we need. And why do it? Because we can. Because we want to.
Absolutely.
It's just a love of the music at the end of the day. We said with M-Pire, we don't want to be genre specific. We don't want to think, okay, it's called M-Pire of Evil, so everybody's going to expect us to be a black metal band because of the Venom heritage that we've both got. He says, no, we've got to be our own entity, and I think we've achieved that on this album. There's a variety of different metal styles on there. You've even got that track Devil, it's a big southern dirty blues track, the slide guitar on there. And the reason that song was written just because I wanted to do something like that. And another reason was to pay homage to Robert Johnson and Crossroads and all that kind of stuff. And just to say, as well, within the words of the song, is to say that, okay then, you know, Venom, black metal, before that, Black Sabbath, Black Widow, but before that, go way back, you know, to some guy sitting on a porch with an acoustic and a slide, and he's wailing the blues and singing about the devil, you know. So it's, you know, boys and girls, it's nothing new, you know. We just took it to another level, but there's always a spark that ignites the flame. And for rock, for metal, it's the blues. It's as simple as that. You know, everybody uses the fucking pentatonic scale, the blues version, or whatever you want to call it. You know, we're all using the same shit. And that's what we wanted to do with that. I mean, the first line, you know, a widow on a Sabbath day, Black Widow, Black Sabbath, you know, the snake that did us wrong. That's our reference to Venom. But way before it all began, the Delta sang its song. And it's just paying homage to where it all came from at the end of the day, you know. And obviously our influences as well, you know. I mean, Metal Messiah, it's, you know, that's my homage to Priest at the end of the day. I think there's a good cross-section of metal styles on there. There's you know, you've got some thrash elements on there, but the thing I've gotten from the reviews is everybody is just saying, and I mean, the reviews have been great, I mean, everybody's just saying, this is just a good fucking heavy metal album. And I thought, that's great, because maybe now it's time to reunite everything under that one umbrella of just being heavy metal. Because, you know, you hear people saying today, oh, what kind of metal are you into? What kind of metal? What the fuck are you talking about? What kind of metal are you into, you know? And I think probably Venom's got a lot of that to answer to. I just think the scene has been a little bit fragmented. You know, with black, thrash, speed, death, doom, fucking math metal. What the fuck's that? You know, it's like this metal, that metal, other metal, fucking, oh God, come on, man. You know, I think it's going back to the thing, you've got long hair, or you've got a bald head, you've got a fucking guitar in your hands, it's loud, it's metal, okay, thank you very much, good night. So I think, you know, again, you know, being arrogant or pretentious, it's like, you know, this empire thing, it's just, I just want to reunite metal again, you know, just get everybody under the same fucking flag, you know, us against the world once again. So I think that's the reason for Empire. Plus the fact, like I said, we can, and we want to, and we are. Just simple as that.
So what you're saying is, you started by splintering metal into all these genres, now you want to reunite it back the way it was.
Yeah, absolutely. But only it took me half an hour to say that.
That's awesome. So, Hell to the Holy is coming out in a couple weeks, but you released the EP, as you said, Creatures of the Black, a few months ago to sort of whet our collective appetites. Talk a little bit about that, because you guys had 2 new songs on it, but you guys had some covers. How did you choose those covers? Why did you choose to do that first?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the cover, we were running a little bit behind schedule for the album, so we came up with the idea of doing an EP. It's just like a precursor to the album. And we thought, right, okay, then let's do some covers, and let's do some of the songs that influenced us. So obviously Exciter is mine, because that's the song I remember just walking out from the hall going, fucking hell, that was brilliant. For Tony, Motörhead, obvious choice. For Anton, Hell Ain't a Bad Place to Be, because his older brother Graham was a huge AC/DC fan, and he used to constantly play the live album all the time, and that's one of the songs he used to hear. And then collectively, God of Thunder, which basically is a statement in itself, plus the fact it's one of the songs that in the early days that Venom used to cover. We used to do God of Thunder, Green Monalishi, the Priest version of the Peter Green song, and we used to do No Class by Motörhead. But yeah, we used to jam God of Thunder quite often, and thought, well, that would be a nice touch as well, because we were all sort of into Kiss, and you know, God of Thunder is, like I say, the obvious Kiss choice for us. But also, you know, like I say, Venom used to do that, and then we thought, well, we'll put a couple of tasters on of what's to come, you know. So yeah, that's where Reptile and Creatures of the Black came from. So, I mean, I'm happy with the cover versions. I think, you know, they stay quite true to what they are.
Right.
Didn't want to do our own versions of them, you know. It's like, because they're all classic songs, and it's like, well, you don't fuck with something which is fucking perfect, you know. It's good as it is. Leave it the way it is, and just pay homage to it, and just do it justice, and that's it. So yeah,
just louder and heavier.
Yeah.
So now, what was it like getting back into the studio with Tony?
Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely. I mean, God, we work really, really well together. We always have done. I mean, it's just when we get in the studio together and we sit down and we listen to the music and we're coming up with ideas, it's just like idea tennis. It's backwards and forwards. Yeah, if we do this, we do that. Oh, yeah, what about if we put this in? It's probably the same process that a lot of bands go through, I suppose, you know. I mean, you know, there's no... I don't think there's any magic formula to it, but it's just... we're quite like-minded in the way that we put the ideas together. And then, on the other end of the scale, we've got different ideas, but the different ideas complement each other rather than being in conflict.
Right.
So it's a great working relationship, you know. And I mean, like I say, musically as well, you know, if Tony listens to something like with the track Metal Messiah, Tony asked me to make one little change towards the end of the song, and it was something that I hadn't heard, and it was just rearranging a part, and in my head I hadn't heard that, so rearranged the part, sat back and listened to it and went, fuck yeah, you know, that works really well. It works better than it was before. So I mean, it's all stuff like that. And the other good thing is constructive criticism, which, you know, that never happened in Venom. If you said, oh, can we try this? Boom! Nuclear! Here we go. You know, it was just a fucking argument. You know, everybody was very, you know, precious about their little babies, you know, which you can be as a songwriter, I suppose, you know, if you think something's good the way it is. But at the end of the day, it's what's best for the song, not for the ego. You know, and the song's really got to tell you what it wants to do. I know that sounds a little bit sort of hippy-dippy or, you know, whatever, like a tree hugger there, like, but I think it's got to grow itself, you know. And the other thing I've always said is if you work on a song too long, it's not meant to be. You know,
right.
Songs have got to be spontaneous and they've got to happen. And if you don't want to listen to a song twice in a row, then fucking don't use it. You know, there might be some good bits in, you might enjoy that little bit, that link or that chorus, put it into something else. And that's basically the way we work. But no, it's been great working together again. I mean, probably the last time we actually physically wrote together was Primeval. But I think, you know, it's great, and I think, to be brutally honest, I think Tony's vocals are even better than now than when they were on Primeval. That's just my personal opinion, you know. But I think, you know, we've all grown, hopefully, as musicians. So yeah, I mean, it's been a good creative process, and it's been a very enjoyable creative process as well.
You guys, when you guys first started out, mostly analog stuff, the digital started to come in now, the technology, and I think a lot of bands with all that technology, the Pro Tools and everything, have sort of lost that organic nature of coming in with an idea and just sitting down and sort of jamming it and seeing where it goes, like you said, where it naturally takes you.
Yeah. Well, it's the age of cut and paste, isn't it? You know, it's I mean, it's good in one way because you have got that luxury of, you know, creating a part in your project window and then creating another part. I mean, I've done this myself when it comes to songwriting. You know, you'll sit down with a groove, and you get the BPM, and then you think, okay, then it's guitar riff, boom, 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 and you come up with a piece and you think, yeah, that's really cool. And then we'll maybe, you know, put another groove in and play a riff to that, and then try joining them up, you know. So I have done songs like that before, and I mean, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, the song Devil, that was completely organic from beginning to end. That fucker wrote itself, you know. It just happened. And Metal Messiah, Tony sent me the lyrics to that. There was no music written whatsoever, and the remit was classic metal, Priest. And I thought, I know where this is going straight away. And that song was written half a day, something like that, from beginning to end, all the riffs and everything like that. And I sent it back to him, and he went, "That's it. Don't touch it. just leave it the way it is, you know. I mean, going as far back as black metal, I mean, that song there, black metal, the whole thing, good God, 5-10 minutes? Just, you know, it's so basic, but it's effective.
Right.
You know, it's one of these things I've said as well. I mean, up until last year I was doing a thing called Rock School, where, you know, we brought kids in and taught them to be in bands, all about the teamwork and the, you know, confidence building and all this kind of stuff, and, you know, trying to get them to write songs together. It's like, you know, you see them overcomplicating things and putting this in and saying, whoa, no. I mean, you can have a band like, I don't know, let's pick something like Dragon Force, you know, it's fucking arpeggios all over the fucking place and fucking time changes and speed and fucking, you know, there's just 1,000,001 guitar parts to it. But I'm sorry, they're never going to play it to the same crowd as AC/DC. You know what I mean? You know, A, G, D. There you go. Fucking Angus has made a career out of it, and he's a fucking blues player.
That's it. It's all starts with the riff, man.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you start with that riff. You know, you get a cool verse. Fucking, you know, it's got to raise into the chorus. You know, you've got to have that hook line, and don't take fucking 5 minutes to get the chorus, because people will get fucking bored. But you know, that's the thing about it being organic and about it just happening, and I think that's happened quite a lot on this album. It's, a lot of the songs just come together, and you know, it's, you know, one riff has sparked another riff has sparked another one, and that's the way it's went. There's been nothing forced on this album, let's put it that way. We never haven't sat down and thought, right, I need a song like this, or I need a song like that, or even, you know, somebody asked me, you know, did you go back to the Venom catalogue and revisit it, and like, oh, right, I need to, and no. Because if I wanted to do Venom stuff, I would still be in fucking Venom. This is completely different. You know, I don't see any similarities in the two bands whatsoever. They're doing what they do, you know, and we're doing what we do. And we're doing what we do without any restrictions whatsoever. We've got a little saying within the band, no limits, no compromise, zero fucking tolerance. There you go.
Perfect.
So, that's our little thing within the band. But that's it. We don't want to compromise ourselves. We don't want to put any limits on what we want to do, you know. And you know, like I say, you know, Devil, big dirty southern blues track with slide guitar, and it's like, I think it's as heavy as fuck, but it's great because it's got hooks and choruses and stuff like that as well.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm about. I'm about the song.
You guys are getting ready to come over a week or so before the album comes out, I believe. You guys are going to be doing a U.S. tour starting in Seattle. Yep. And you guys are going to be with Onslaught, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Before we get out of here, from each of you, if you could maybe give me one or two albums that changed your life.
I'll pass you over to Tony for that one first, because I'm going to think about it. I got this question before in the last interview, and I was like, fuck, what? So I'm passing you over to him, and you can ask him that question. Yes, Tony.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing wonderful. The Demolition Man himself, Tony Dolan. How you doing, brother?
Yeah, I'm alright, bro. How is it?
Absolutely.
I wasn't sure I was going to get to talk to anybody.
I was like, boy, I didn't even have to write a list of questions. I asked one question, and I could... There's the interview.
Yeah, well, that's it. That's it. Both of us are prone to talking quite a lot. That's all you got to do. Just ask the right question. Like, tell me everything that happened from when you were born, and you'll get everything.
So, well, the question I just asked him was name a couple of albums that for you were the ones that sort of changed your life.
Albums that changed my life. And that's why he passed it over to me, is it? I see his game plan now. For me, albums that changed my life, I'd say The Incredible Shrinking Dickies by the Dickies, Kiss Alive, and Motörhead by Motörhead. I think those three albums. I was we'd emigrated to Canada. I was living in Windsor, and it got to Halloween the first summer. I guess I wasn't so much into music, although I'd been the early part of the 70s in the UK, so I was aware of music and stuff. But we got to this Halloween in Canada, and everybody goes out trick-or-treating, and all these guys from the school that I was about to join
because we moved to Canada in the summer, and the summer semester was on, and we hadn't started school yet, and all these guys went, "Oh yeah, we all go out trick-or-treating, it's Halloween, you've got to get dressed up." So I dressed as some sort of a pirate or captain or something, and I went to meet all these guys who I would know from school, and they were all dressed with this makeup on their face, and I was like, "What the fuck are you guys?" And they were Kiss. I was like, "Wow, cool, what the fuck's Kiss?" And he went, "Well, there's this band, you haven't heard Kiss?" I was like, "No." And one guy came up the next day, had Kiss Live 1, put it on, and I just was like, "Holy shit, this is just amazing." I was very fortunate. I actually saw them on tour at the Cobo Hall in Detroit. It blew my mind, and from then I thought, whatever this is, I've got to be part of this. But then when I returned to England, the punk thing was all happening, which hit me sideways, and I sort of got into that, and very quickly found a band called the Dickies, who are out of California, who just played so fast. I heard Paranoid played by them, and just thought, holy shit, the speed was incredible. So I really got hooked onto the Dickies and the speed thing. And then sort of late 70s, I went to see a punk band, and heard a new punk band that I'd never heard of before, but they said, "Yeah, but these guys are a bit different because they've all got long hair." And I was like, "Long hair?" And my introduction was the opening chords to Motörhead by Motörhead, and I heard those opening chords and just thought, "Holy fuck, I've got to play the bass, and I've got to be able to play that particular bass in that particular way." And so those three moments led me into music, I think, and one layered on top of the next. Kiss, the performance, the whole approach to actually, performing live. Right. Dickies, the speed just got me, and then the power of Motörhead, and it just dragged me right into the hole. So yeah, I guess those three particularly. There's so many fucking fantastic albums by so many fantastic artists that, they all colour you some way or another.
Right.
And, everything, you hit great spots like, British Steel, listening to that by Priest, or later on Rain and Blood and a seminal album. There's some just fantastic moments by so many great bands, and I'm quite eclectic in my music taste. And just listen to everything, because there's value in everything. You can glean something from everything. But I'd say those three particular moments were things that just made me just smell the blood, if you like, and think, yes, that's what I've got to do. I've got to play as fast as them. I've got to do something as avant-garde and as show-worthy as them, and I've got to do something as heavy as them, So, I'd say those. What are your three favourites then?
Well, I grew up on Kiss too, so Kiss Alive is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, probably Cheap Trick of Budokan.
Cheap Trick, yes. Yeah, of course. You see what I mean? If you start digging, there's just some classic stuff, isn't there?
Right, and then of course, any of the early Black Sabbath albums just frickin' turned my head.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But
you see. I even miss Sabbath out. You see, it's so hard, isn't it?
Absolutely. So he was talking quite a bit about the new album, which is what we're here for anyway. But he talked about Devil and Metal Messiah and everything. But are there one or two songs on the album that really have a story or stand out for you?
Well, I think, I think on an absolute personal vibe, there's things like Snake Pit and Shockwave, Snake Pit's a particular one. There used to be a club we used to go to, which had sort of two floors. Had a dance floor downstairs and had a balcony upstairs. And everybody hung it there. It was a total heavy metal club. It was very famous in the north of England, particularly in Newcastle. And every band went through there. We saw so many great acts there. I saw DC there on Highway to Hell, but Motörhead played, Judas Priest. First time Maiden show with Paul Di'Anno supporting Priest, I saw there. Everybody played there, but it was also just a rock, they'd have a rock DJ and people would just hang out there. But the thing was, there was a particular type of people that went there, there were the leggers, and I guess it was such a big part of our growing up and our coming through that it affected us. So we just wanted to make a statement about that, but in a fun way. You know what? Jeff had this riff, and he started playing it, and straight away I could feel a fun vibe from it. A bit of boogie-woogie in there, and just a bit of tongue-in-cheek funness. And what I always liked about the Venom thing was they approached everything. There was really hard stuff, really, intense stuff, but they were always having some fun, They'd always pop a bit of joy in, so, they were sort of tipping you a wink, if you like, So, and I wanted us to have that vibe because we were having so much fun. We were translating that onto the album, so we just sat down and we just pissed our pants writing the lyrics to it, and because we came up with all sorts of lines that just made us laugh. But one of the bang your head instance, how that came about is because it didn't matter where you were in the club. The guys, if you heard your favourite track, you had to get on the dance floor, you had to find your space, and you had to bang your head. And so, you'd see, I don't know, a song would come on, and you'd see guys all over this club just running as fast as they could to get onto this dance floor. And then it was just a sea of hair. So I guess we were just sort of remembering ourselves, how great those halcyon days were, and great for the right reasons, because you could like Cheap Trick, AC/DC, Metallica, Venom, Raven, Toto. It didn't matter. Everybody was in the same pond, We were all swimming in the same water, and there was a fraternity. And I think Jeff mentioned it earlier that these days we've managed to categorize music down to like a particular guitar type, a particular way to play the drums, and that's cool. All genres are cool, That's what music's about as well. But so many people say that rock music, I don't think it has the power it has. I can tell you it absolutely has. There's a million fantastic death, black, thrash rock bands in South America alone. That's, regardless of anywhere else, it's like, it's very alive and well. But what tends to have happened, I think, is particularly in Europe, is they've categorized it so much that it looks like it's a marginalized type of music, but it's absolutely not. It's just it has 50 subgenres inside it, whereas back in the day, rock was rock, and that was it.
Yeah.
Sabbath. You mentioned Sabbath, Kiss, and Cheap Trick. How I had three bands that are just exactly like each other. No, completely different, but all great rock bands. You could put Creedence in there and Aerosmith back in the day, and Foreigner, and it wouldn't make any difference. What I love about America, growing up there and being there was rock radios. It was rock radio everywhere. I used to listen to WRIF down Detroit, and you could have fucking every rock band there. I mean, you come back to England, it had to be like between 9 and 10 on a Friday. You had the Friday Rock Show by the BBC, and that was it. If you missed that, you were fucked. You never heard any other piece of rock music again. It was all about pop, and I think with the kind of attitude you have in America, where it's part of your culture, blues came out of there, rock and roll came out of there, and you guys just think of it as music. Rock music is just music. Whereas in England or everywhere else, rock music is a particular type of music, and it's quite interesting that the sort of, the approach of some of the press so far on this side of the pond is that they've been a bit sort of shocked because they can't categorize us. They were expecting another Venom album just by us, and it's not that kind of album, so they're just thinking, well, where do we put them? What shoebox do we put them in? And they can't file us under rock metal, if you like. But that's about it. It is interesting. But that was all Project Snake. But, a bit reminiscent, just a bit of fun. Everybody's been there, the chicks, the smells, the booze, trying to hit on the girls, but you need some Dutch courage, and you end up drinking so much you get fucking wasted, and the guy's shoving in the car, and you end up waking up inside your own vomit, and you didn't get her anywhere. And she probably looked much better once you were wasted than she did if you were ever sober anyway. And then things like Shockwave, which are a bit of sort of, it's more old school towards the old Venom aggression thing, I think, just making a statement, a vendetta type of thing, M-Pire is just a prelude to what's coming next, so, we put a bit of death metal feel in there, and, pop the old satanic name in there, and, again, we're just feeling our way through. We went, like Jeff said, I think we couldn't preconceive anything because we knew whatever we did, people would be trying to link us up to, the current Venom situation. I think we would challenge them and all of that sort of stuff. And that was the one thing we didn't want to do, but we didn't think how should we be, how should we approach it. We just went, well, if we're going to write music, just let's have fun writing whatever we want to write. And that's what we did. And if it sounds like us, if it sounds more Metallica this way, or Hell. I mean, when we put Hellspawn, when it went out and people started talking about Hellspawn on the album, people were going, "My God, it sounds like Sepultura." It's like, really? Awesome. Several people had said that. I was like, really, Sepultura? What's amazing is I've got, we mentioned some classic albums. Now, they're good albums all the way through, but let's take Kiss Live. Do you have a favorite song from there?
Oh, God, you know how many times that's changed over the years? It's hard because there's not a bad song on it.
Exactly, but how many times has it changed over the years? And if you said which your favorite one, Jeff would say a different one, and I'd say a different one. But that doesn't mean there's a bad song on there. It just means you go, oh, I love that one, but I love that one too, and I love that one. And what really is telling me that we did right doing whatever we wanted to do, the way we wanted to do it, was that out of all the reviews, some have gone for Metal Messiah, some have gone for Wake Up Dead, some have gone for Hell for the Holy, some have gone for the Eighth Gate. There's not one song of the album that a reviewer hasn't picked out as being the one that they like, and they're not all the same song. And I think, well, that for me, that means we've managed to do it. Everybody has different tastes. Not everybody's going to like what you like, and not everybody's going to agree. But if every single person thinks the album wasn't a waste and there's some great stuff on there, but they have their favourites, and they're all their favourites, maybe the same thing will happen to them. Maybe over the years, they'll change which songs they like. As we mature and as we become a bit more open-minded, we change how we are. So, you can be a bit narrow and go, I like the speed stuff, and then you can go, you might like the more progressive stuff. But what seems to be happening is that depending on how the people are, depending on where their ears lie as far as what they like to listen to, they're picking that out from the album, but it's specific to them. And that's great. That's great to be able to speak to everybody with at least one song from an album is fantastic. So, if everybody said, "Oh, Hellspawn's fantastic, Hell to the Holy, I quite like Metal Messiah as a winner," the rest of them, yeah, they're okay. But now everybody's picking their favorite one or two songs from the album, and like I say, they're not the same songs that they're picking, and so that's got to be a winner. I mean, I'm really proud of what we did. I think Jeff wrote some amazing stuff on there. It came to life, and there was such a flow that for me, there was no point in trying to stop that flow, just to encourage that flow. And then we had time constraints, financial constraints, so it came down to production, and we had several ways we could engineer, several ways we could master options. Some of them would have cost a bit more than others, but he just plodded through, and the more we listened to this stuff, it was like, just do it. It was very stressful for him, but I think he did an absolutely stoic job. I mean, the album sounds absolutely great. The music I love playing, when we're playing it live in rehearsals, it's fucking unbelievable, and I can't wait to I'm busting at the seams to chuck that at an audience. So it's so exciting, but just what a tremendous job. We had Guy Larantak, who did the cover. I mean, everything was right. Really cool label, really supportive people, great manager, great agents. It's like I think it's the first time in our career that we're in control, but actually happy with everything. I said in an interview the other week, I said, because they said, like, do you think it's the best work and it's your favourite stuff? And I said, well, yeah, it is. But I tell you what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to do what a load of other people do. If we put this album out and everybody went, this sucks shit, I'd still say I was proud of it, and I'd still love it, and I'd still go out and play it. And what tends to happen is people make an album and go, it's the best thing we've ever done. It's the best thing we've ever done. Oh, yeah, it's great. Then they put it out, it may get bad reviews, and then they go, yeah, I never liked that album anyway. I was never happy with it, sometimes you think that they're being manipulative and they don't have the conviction in what they're doing. And we were absolutely convinced that this is what we wanted to do, the way we wanted to do it. And when we were finished, we went, yep, we like that. And that's it. It was honest and it was simple. Not trying to be anything else it isn't. It's heavy metal, the way it should be played. And that's it, as simple as that.
Yes, I still have to write my review of the album this weekend, so...
Oh, right. Have you got it yet?
I do. I haven't had a chance to really soak it in as much as I want to, because that's one of the things I've discovered as I get older too. As when you listen to so many albums and review them, you get jaded. Yeah. So what I like to print a copy off and then just throw it in the car and drive around for a few days and just let it play.
Well, I also think the disadvantage for reviewers and for people like journalists like yourself and stuff, I think the disadvantage is now everybody's got this fucking habit of doing these mega uploads and shit where you get a torrent stream where you can listen to it. You know, and I know it's supposed to be the same value as CD, but you know, I quite like people getting product, you know. When people used to send me music, I much prefer, I've got a terabyte of a hard drive full of music, because people send me stuff all the time. But I still prefer getting a CD and, you know what I mean, and then having the finished article. And labels just find it much easier to promote by sending one thing and directing everybody there. And I think it doesn't have the same impact, does it?
No, I mean, part of the magic of rock and roll was sitting down with that album and looking at the cover and the smell of it, the feel of it, the lyrics, what was inside. It was an experience, and that we've been robbed of that, you know.
We have been robbed. We have been robbed of it. You're right. Well, why? You can download the cover. I don't want to download the motherfucking cover and print it off. I want you to let me buy it. And so I remember. I think it was. What was it? I'm sure it was Bad Company. I remember a release, probably about 75. And I went to the local music store in Windsor and bought a fucking 8-track. Remember them?
Yep.
An 8-track. And I ran all the way home and took this fucking thing out. It was the size of a small video machine. And I clunked it in. And I listened to the album non-stop for about 5 days. I was like, an 8-track. You know, if I showed someone an 8-track these days, they'd think, I think I was a dinosaur. But, again, like even in the 8-track, there was something really cool about having, it was like you were holding the band in your hands, the actual recordings in your hands. You were part of it. It's also one of the things we wanted to put on here, we wanted people to listen to it and feel that there was a fucking band actually playing. Not that it was like, overproduced and some sort of like, hodgepodge of sellotape, gaffer tape music together, which some engineer or some producer had sort of, manipulated to make it sound like that way. And I think that's probably one of the best things is that Mantas produced it, because, who knows your sound better than you? Right. Nobody does. So we thought, at the end of the day, we said about the next album and the next EP, which we're thinking about already, and it was like, we talked about how to do the next one. I said, at the end of the day, we had the discussion only yesterday. I said, we're going to look to get a really great guy to come in to tell him how we want it to sound when we can fucking do it without him. We don't need to bring somebody else in to try and convince him that he's got to do it this way. So, while it works, and that's, Jeff doing the production is part of the identity of the M-Pire. So it's perfect. It works so well, But it's honest. I think it's just an honest piece of music from our point of view.
I'm looking forward to really soaking in the album and getting the review out. I love the EP, and of course I thought the covers were just incredible. They're all bands that I'm a huge fan of, so when you hear them with that edge and that ballsy sound, it's just like, yes! So.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, I'm great. I tell you, just before, I'll pass you over 2 seconds, but when I used to live with my mom, I got a sister who's 10 years younger, and when my mom used to go out and I was supposed to be babysitting, it's just between me and you, what I'd do is I'd go downstairs, she had a stereo right in front of the front window of the house, and I'd open the curtains, turn all the lights off, open the curtains, put Motörhead on, and I'd stand and pretend I was Lemmy playing it. So when we recorded that, and those opening bass notes, I was like, oh, this is like, I've died and gone to heaven. So I thought, once you'd committed to something like that, I thought, I don't care if the world hates this, because I just love this. It was like a life's piece of work to get to that point. I'm not Lemmy, and it wasn't his bass, and I'm not in Motörhead, but for that moment, I was that guitar hero, and that was what we tried to do, just to relive that and go, wow, we're playing our heroes here. So I'm glad you liked it, because it was fucking great to do. It really was.
Paul Stanley was mine, so, all the way back to the tennis racket days,
Oh yeah, we all did that. It's brilliant. Well, look, it was lovely to talk to you. I'll pass you back to the man himself, and he thought he got out of his 3-album thing, but he hasn't. Yeah, so you've got to hit him with that one. But take it easy. And whereabouts are you located?
I'm in Boise, Idaho these days.
You're in Boise. So
sadly, you guys are missing us.
Yeah. Well, the thing was, we did three weeks of solid dates, but we actually had to knock 2 weeks off because there were so many dates being offered once we'd done. But we're going through this time with Onslaught. The intention is, we do this with Onslaught. We got to come into Europe, then we do a big launch in Italy for the label and for the album. Then we do Rock Hard Festival. We've got a few festivals, Muscle Rock in Sweden. We're playing with Hell, Sodom, Bulldozer, all this sort of stuff. But then what we want to do is we want to come back to America and go through all the places we couldn't get to this time.
That would be awesome.
We'll be coming through you
eventually.
So if you don't get to us this time, we'll make sure you get to us the next one.
Well, and hopefully at some point you guys will get a chance to record a DVD of all of this stuff now that it's that age. So everybody can see you live for those who couldn't make it.
Well, yeah, exactly. I intend to do this one, and on every date, at the end of every date or before every day, we'll be doing a daily blog, me and Mantas, and that'll be put part of our website. Nice. So people will be able to go on to the M-Pire of Evil official site, and they'll be able to see us giving our daily blog from the city. We'll probably have some fans on there chatting to us, and I'm just going to keep everything recorded. So, the M-Pire is about... not just about the three of us. The Empire is about all of us. It's an empire, and it's about telling we had our empire back. So this is for the fans, to the fans, and to bring us all back into one camp. So it's our empire. But we will be making sure we get everything done there.
I meant to ask Jeff, and I didn't. The new drummer, Jackson.
Yes.
Is he just going to be the touring drummer now, or have you officially brought him into the trio? Or
well, because we're at an early stage, because we had to bring somebody in to go and play, and there was lots of names put on the table for us, and we had several offers of people willing to offer, and we just, we weren't sure whether we should enlist a new drummer or whether we should just commit to the tour and get the tour dates out the way. So at the moment, Jackson's our drummer. He's a member of our band because that's how we work, and we're just going to get through our dates. We'd like him to stay, but let's see what happens.
This is the courtship period.
Yes, I think so. I mean, he's one of the nicest guys I've met, and he eats, sleeps, drinks, smokes, rolls around in drums. This kid is a musician, top and bottom. But one of my main things was, I didn't want a band member to join us. I wanted a musician to join us, because someone who just loves to play music, not someone who wants to be in a band, someone who wants to play music. Because if we have musicians, it means we can do anything we want to. I mean, we jammed the other day, the three of us, fully you mentioned Sabbath. We jammed something that could have been fucking from, a 1972 period Sabbath, And we just went round and round and round on these simple riffs and just had a blast, And this kid's got a feel for it, He's got a very traditional feel, but he's got a very modern style as well. And so, who knows? We might do something as early as that on the next album, Move from the blues and the Delta stuff, just pop it up a bit. So move away from the 20s and maybe slide her into that great, rich period of the 60s into 70s of rock, and we'll put something like that together and then put our big boot all over it, But that's why we needed a musician, someone who's not afraid to play and someone who wants to just play music. So, it's not about the badge you wear, it's about, what you want to play, really. So it's exciting. But yeah, so we'll see. We'll see. I mean, if he's a complete tosser and he's shit and everybody hates him, we'll find somebody else. But I don't think so. He's a good kid. He's a good kid. He's young. The only downside, that's the only downside. He's young, he's good looking, which is why we fucking hate him. And he's got hair for a start. I mean, what the fuck's all that about? But, no, he's good. And I can't wait to show the audience him, because this kid is tight as fuck, you know. And the stuff sounds awesome, you know. Even the old classic stuff we've been doing, fucking, he's just got a handle on it. So powerful. But, look, I'll pass you back to Mantas, because otherwise you'll be here till like tomorrow, because we're both there talk a lot. But thanks so much, bro. I'll pass you across, and nice to talk to you.
Take care.
Hello.
Hello. So you got your 2 or 3 albums that changed your life?
Changed my life. It's got to be Unleashed in the East, Live, Kiss. I've got to pick something by Gary Moore, because he's my all-time favourite guitar hero, so... Oh, I love live albums. We Want More, something like that, or even Corridors of Power. Nice. But then I could pick Mahogany Rush Live, Frank Marino. Fucking hell, there's just so many. But I mean, definitely Unleashed in the East and Kiss Alive. Kiss Alive was the first Kiss album I ever bought.
Same here.
Yeah, fuck, you know, I mean, that, you know, when I seen the front cover of that, I was like, oh, wow. Who the fuck's that? You know, but Unleashed in the East as well, like I say, great albums, you know. But you know, me being a massive Priest fan, fucking hell, you could just pack any Priest album for a fucking a desert island, and I'd be quite happy with it. You know, there's always some sterling stuff on the Priest albums. So.
That's true, but Unleashed in the East was the first one that I had ever heard too, and you know, Exciter and all that stuff. I was just like, this is fucking awesome.
Yeah, I know. Oh, it is. It's fucking incredible stuff, man. I just love it. My big not regret, but you know, KK's not there anymore, and you know that guy's just, the guy's my hero, you know. So
yep,
it's a shame, but
it's hard.
Yeah, these things happen.
Jeff, thanks so much. Same to Tony.
Oh, you're welcome.
And hopefully I'll get a chance to see you in person. We'll sit down and talk a little bit more, because it sounds like we come from the same school of rock. So.
Oh, yeah.
All right, brother.
My friend.
Have a good one, and I'll talk with you soon.
Okay, cheers, bro.